Welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation, along with
CJ Lou from the Fired Up with CJ show.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! Joy to the world.
If you've ever wanted more peace, joy, and stillness in your life, then do we have the Inner Peace Show for you. Today we'll talk about finding greater peace, living peace, breathing peace, and even sleeping peace. That plus we'll talk about grumpy elves, listening and humility, welcoming the unexpected, homeless heart opening, Jessica and Netflix, mountain bike clarity, packed calendars, and opening space for bliss, playing in parking lots, and what in the world killer attack donkeys has to do with anything. Gotcha. So welcome back to the show, CJ. Are you ready to shine?
Yes, I just have all these visions of donkeys, and donkeys are so, in my mind, the characters that you see on cartoons are always kind of surly and a little bit grouchy. So, killer attack donkeys, I can see it, but what happened with the killer attack
Well,
donkeys?
we filmed, nothing happened per se. We filmed in front of a herd of sheep and a donkey that looked almost sheep-like in the midst of this herd a few days ago at a place called Ace's Rock Bottom Ranch.
hmm
And
What were you filming? You're filming for your
Center
WoW?
for Environmental Studies. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Filming for the Daily Wow. And Jessica went to the center for a talk a few days ago and learned that this donkey that looks very similar to the sheep as far as coloring goes, and was standing in the middle like this is my herd, is there to literally protect the sheep against mountain lions. And if a mountain lion comes in, the donkey kicks the mountain lion,
Wow.
which is going for the sheep. So it is literally a killer attack or guard. I guess you could call it a guard donkey. That's
Wow.
sort of like a sheepdog. The donkey protects the sheep. I had never
Wow.
heard of such a thing, but
I
you saw it in there, and it's looking like these are my sheep. I'm here on duty.
I just wish you could ride your bike over and see what it would do to you. Did you
Oh,
test it?
I think it would be fine with us. I think you can determine Bobcat from Bob Michael. So, but it was really fun. We filmed these daily words of wisdom, and we're working on our social media campaign, and it was really fun filming outside of the sheep. And then there was what do you call them? Chicken coops that are on wheels, so that they can wheel it to different parts of the farm, so it has there's continuously fresh grass for the chicken, and so that was pretty cool.
Nice.
So it was really really fun communing with the animals, and something I recommend everybody. So this airs on a Friday, and almost anywhere that people are, there's some farm, petting zoo, something you can go to where you can get. I'm a petting zoo guy, not a zoo guy. Big difference. But someplace where you can play with the animals. So the
Are
animal
you not a Zuzu guy because you have like a problem with animals not being free?
Yeah, I'm not a big animals behind bars kind of thing. I
Yeah,
know that to save some species at this point, that's what you have to do. I
right.
get it. But as a general rule, I want to go into a zoo and set all the animals free. Fly, Simba, be free.
Isn't there a
Why?
movie with Jim Carrey where he does that?
Yes, something like that. Not my line. Yes.
Okay, okay, got it. So that's your take on. Well, that's interesting. So, what does this killer donkey, attack donkey, have to do with peace and stillness? It's not grooving for me.
It's getting out and being with the animals. It's spending
Mm.
time with the animals. It is just
Ah.
this week has been our, things cycle. And the way the cycle works is our shows. I don't want to use the busy term. There's another. We have had more quality hours filled or more quality per hour this week than we have had in the history of this show. And that's great. And that means abundance and it means so many awesome things. But I've wanted to counterbalance that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hike. Jessica wanted to go to this farm a few days ago. And oh my God, talk about lowering your cortisol levels. Being around animals is just It felt so, so good. So the peace of getting out to a farm, of getting to the animals, of getting to pet an animal, any of that, I think is tremendous for getting us out of our heads,
Hmm.
even for a minute or two. You're not petting a sheep or something and thinking about, oh, I've got this appointment here and I've got that appointment there. No, it's like, it's fun.
I had a similar experience because on Monday I was a little bit stressed out, and a friend of mine brings her puppy to our writing class, and I was just holding that little puppy, and just like it just felt so comforting to hold that little puppy. And it had had some medication, so it was all kind of drowsy, so it was just sitting there, and I was like, "Ugh." It does help. It does help, and it sounds like we've had kind of a similar week. I actually had a whole week. It sounds similar. I don't. I think you're being generous and calling your time like high quality time. I don't know my time. My time. I don't know if it was high quality, but it was a lot of quantity of time where I would wake up one morning. I had intentions of writing or to work on a project, and then I decided to do a bathroom remodel and a landscaping remodel this summer. It's this kind of empty nesting drive to move forward and kind of create your new home and have everything outside be a mirror of what starting to feel on
Sacred
the inside.
space.
Yeah, so it's the thing that we talked about a couple weeks ago. And so we've been doing that, and it's like, this bathroom remodel has been on my mind probably for about 7 years. And finally I thought, okay, this year I'm going to remodel the bathrooms because they're sort of old and outdated and a little bit crummy, and the paint is really old fashioned. Some of the curtains are looking kind of sad. So we've decided or I decided to take on a remodel, and I forgot how much time all the
Mhm.
little details take. And this week, I'd start off Monday thinking I would be doing one thing and find myself doing another thing. And literally almost every single day this week has proceeded in that way. And what was interesting is I didn't take my own prescription for peace. Instead of hunkering down on meditation and creating more space, what I found myself doing is the little space that we used to have in our lives in between, which is now interrupted by ourselves due to technology. So I'd be walking from one thing to another. I was actually literally running and talking to my contractor. I'm like, okay, so anyways, so let me see if we've got this right. Because I'm like, I didn't have any time. So I thought
Oh
I gotta
no.
fit things in order to call him so he can set up his schedule properly and not affect his workers or his livelihood or income. I need to call him now. I don't have any other time to do this than this moment. I also don't have any other time today to go for a run. So how about combine the two together? And so my whole week has been, and it's what I've been noticing is that it's like you start getting on a bike, and have you ever been on a bike where you've pedaled too fast and then your legs, like, it takes a while to decelerate because your legs are
Yep,
like
yep, yep.
so I started doing that earlier this week, and I found myself today, even though I had space, looking like kind of habitually, and it wasn't even for that many days. I mean, 4 days have been this, like, where I've been like looking at my phone going, wait, I don't have to look at my phone right now. I can create space. Put the phone away. And so I put the phone away, and then I was like, oh, but, and then I'd like put the phone up again.
Step away from the phone, CJ.
so, so that was my lesson in areas that I still need to grow in. Or maybe just stuff like this happens. I don't know how to describe it.
Your week, and I won't go into her week too much, but your week and Jessica's week are paralleling perfectly
Okay.
because there would be a handyman who would come to the house to work on different things. The landlord came over to show us plans. We're talking with a couple amazing web designers and ended up they're halfway around the world having meetings till 11 o'clock at night, things that can very easily pull you off track or off center. And if you don't maintain those pieces, all of a sudden you are, as we shall probably describe you, a grumpy elf.
I was. My husband's like, I said, so, because he has his relatives, are my in-laws are coming in town this week, and we were trying to figure out where we should meet, and he said, well, why don't we host? And I said, okay, fine, that sounds good. And I said, here's some recommendations on things that you could do, and then I was just looking at my whole week, and just this whole week full of things where it was just like things like Jessica's things. And I said, I'm just, I just have to be honest. This is your family, and I'm assuming that you're going to make the drive and game plan for cleaning the house and providing the food. But I just assign me action items. But because I'm working on the remodel, I just have zero bandwidth to orchestrate, lead, or do any of this. So I need you to do this. And he said, are you mad at me? I said, no, why? And he said, you just seem mad at me like for this whole week. You feel like you're mad at me and snapping. Oh. And then I thought for a second and I was like, you're right. I have been totally grumpy. It usually be like, no, I'm not. But this time I was like, this is where I've learned. Like in the past, I'd be like, no, I'm not. You're grumpy. Maybe you're too sensitive. Like I'd go into like a whole jujitsu move. And so he said, you seem like you've been kind of on edge and a little bit. And then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, I am. I just accepted the criticism and said, you're right.
Was that calming in some way?
Yeah, it was. It was like for him to point out to me something that sometimes you didn't even recognize yourself. That, again, that whole accelerating pattern. I started going like, wait, I'm kind of accelerating. But you don't, you're kind of like on a lobster in a boiling pot until he said like, yeah, you've been kind of like on edge and kind of snappish at me this whole week. And I thought about it, I'm like, yeah, so it was helpful because it helped me go, oh, wait a second. Wait, what's happening? And then, like I said, instead of snapping back at him and doing a jiu-jitsu move where it's like, no, it's you, judging him for, it's you and your fault. It's like, no, it's me. It's all my fault. It's me. And okay, what happened? I overbooked
Jessica has the solution.
Yeah, what's the solution?
Netflix stand-up comedy.
That is so true. A good laugh. There have been a couple times that I've laughed my head off this week, and that is hugely helpful. So what has she been watching?
Oh, I'm not sure I should share on air. Let's just say it's an Asian comedian, female variety, a little bit pregnant. And
who that is? Okay. Anyway, so comedian.
It's a stand-up comedian. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
But she's been listening to that. She's also been listening to also Steve Martin, and is it Martin Short she's been listening to, and she's just been using laughter therapy to the max. Mm-hmm. And it has been working wonders for her, and she probably gets to have another dose of it, because this week, while I have stayed centered and grounded in this quality time that I get to spend on things, she's been holding down the fort and getting pulled left, right, center.
I'm right down, with you, Jessica.
And she'll finish the day and probably be like, what happened? I had all these things I was going to get done. None of them happened.
You mean she's going to say that, or you feel that because you're kind of feeling her energy?
No, she's been pulled left, like you've been pulled left, right, center this week. I've been able to get done everything that I get to get done. But to keep things going strong, it has meant that one of the two of us will get pulled. And unfortunately, it's been her.
Yeah, I feel for her. It's actually what I think is the wonderful way that you describe that is that really what you want to do is be centered And what happens is you're like being jerked back. It's like a boat without like a boat that, you see the boats that are hooked and anchored into the dock, but they're just kind of like bushing back and forth and rolling around. And when that happens, it's just very destabilizing and it's hard to regain that center. And so I think that that's a perfect analogy to describe it because all these things are wonderful. Like, I'm excited about the remodel, just as I'm sure Jessica is excited about talking to the web person and all these new things that are happening. It's just that they're unexpected. And so your
Bingo.
whole schedule has to like unwind or reconstitute, or like you have to cram time in, time that you didn't think that you had, or combine things together. And I guess the reality, I mean, if I am completely present and say what is happening, it is what it is. I've booked a lot of things, and this is the outcome when you are overbooked, or booked and things kind of and there's a lot of unknowns, in that booking. That's just, it's a reality of what life is all about. So remodels and building new things have that at the highest amplitude, right? There's just, you're dependent on contractors and contractors who are dependent on other contractors doing work. And so it has this kind of cascading interdependency. And so it's this kind of like floating kind of organic wave. So it's the
It's
nature of
interesting
what it is.
when you mentioned contractors and building new things. When you build things, things get messy. You're surfing chaos for a while. That is the building process. The cement bags are over here, the bricks are over there. It's not, let's keep the place tidy and orderly. Things get chaotic so that the new can come together. So you're right. There's a huge level of acceptance. Going back to what you said earlier, what would be of benefit and is hardest to remember in this time is the adage, if you don't have time to meditate, meditate twice as long.
Yep.
It is so hard in those moments to do it. But if you can consciously drag yourself kicking and screaming and go back to the mat, or back to your journaling, back to your automatic writing, back to whatever your practice is, which is hard if you've been kept up on the phone with contractors late at night, you're waking up overtired late because you've just overflowed from the last day. It is hard to pull yourself back to that.
Yeah, luckily, I've been doing acupuncture to address like the final aspects of my neck and shoulder pain. And I go in there and I get needled up. I could have sworn like I have 40 needles. Like, I was open my eyes and I can see needles coming all over my face. Like there are eyelashes almost out of my face. And
That's when you close your eyes again.
I was like, what? Literally like a centipede full of needles. And
But I bet you conked out on the table.
I completely, for the last I think it's actually been the last 2 weeks have been super busy. And I go on that table and I'm out. And I wake up and I'm just like, where have I been? It's 40 minutes and I've taken a 40-minute nap 2 times a week for the last 2 weeks. And I think that has been my savior, not only because when I get the acupuncture, I sleep so soundly at night, but I have that nap before, or sleep sounding at night. So I think that is the thing that has allowed me to recalibrate. Not meditating. I have meditated. My meditations have been probably worse on record. Um, they just have. I would love to say that despite all this, I've been able to like center my mind, and I have for like 1 second. And I was like, oh, I'm so mad at myself. And I thought, no, this is just the nature of what is right now. You're just getting feedback that your mind is running amok. And that seems natural given all the things that you're juggling around in your mind. And that's okay. You're not going to have a great meditation centered every single time. And even amidst that, I've had meditations where I've been trying to focus on the central channel of my body, and I was able to get like this much. I've been able to like feel this much. Like I can feel like literally a channel this much. And
Cool.
this week, I felt something going all the way to my stomach. So like the other segment kind of came
So
online.
instead of halfway, you've doubled the
Yeah, I've
distance.
doubled the distance of this channel the sensory feeling of the channel. So I thought, okay, that's something. That's like, I'm not sure what's
Take it
happening.
and run with it.
Take it and run with it. Okay, so anyway, so that's sounds like Jessica and I have been having the same thing. Tell me about your mountain bike clarity and how that's fed into creating more peace and beauty and etc.
What was it, a week, two ago, we found that there was a race that finished right in front of the driveway.
Yes.
And so I said, well, that's going to mean something. And so I worked our Ask Michael Anything classes. It's these live events on YouTube. It's been every Wednesday night at 7:11 Eastern. And the races are on Wednesday night. All the community events are on Wednesday night. And so I'm like, well, let's see if we can shift it and see if I can make that space to do that event, to
Yes, I
do, because
remember
these are
that.
weekly events.
Yes.
And the seas parted, the clouds parted, whatever. And I was able to, in my schedule, it was no small thing to be able to shift things from Wednesday to Tuesday. And it magically, with the help of a few very gracious coaching clients, it magically was able to shift from one day to the next. And then I'm like, all right, I'm able to do this. What does that mean? Be careful what you wish for, CJ. And I'm like, all right, the bike is in the shop, getting ready to go. I went on a ride with a neighbor this weekend, gentleman, probably 20 years my senior, and I learned the difference between a 2017 or 2018 bicycle and a 1997 bicycle.
What was it like?
I couldn't keep up with him through the turns.
That's fascinating. So what's the
I
difference
was,
in the bikes?
he has, so I'm running a 26-inch wheel,
Okay.
and so regular size mountain bike wheel.
Right.
His is a much bigger, taller mountain bike wheel. It's a much fatter mountain bike wheel. So it has a bigger contact patch. So it doesn't slide through the turns the way
Oh.
that mine does. And they've manufactured, all the trails around here have been manufactured with bulldozers and shovels. And I guess they're for a certain diameter turn, and that serves well with the new bicycles. And so trying to keep up behind him, he's got a bigger contact patch. His bike doesn't slide as much. It has better traction and has a bigger wheel for momentum. And he would go through the turn, la di da di da. And I'd be like, man, it really feels like my front end is going to slide out if I go any faster. And finally, I said to
Oh.
myself, I said, well, let's see what happens. And I'm a former pro. I can handle this. And so I go into a turn feeling like if I go any faster, the front end's going to slide out. And sure enough, the front end starts to slide
Oh
out. Not
no.
gonna, well, it's okay. Pull it back
Okay,
underneath.
good.
Not a problem. Not a problem at all. But I wasn't sure if what I was sensing was an accurate perception of this is the limit of adhesion, or if it was fear that wasn't letting me. And so I said, we'll test this very gently. And I tested it a couple times and said, no, this bike with my current ability of riding, maybe if I get better, I can do something different. I can't keep up with the technology. And so I went back and forth as the bike was in the shop getting, I think I mentioned last week, it has a bunch of stuff to get done to it to get it back up to par. It was never intended to be even a mountain bike. I bought it in North Carolina to ride the dirt roads away from the cars. Um, but I haven't wanted to budget. We just did a massive move. I'm not in the mood to buy another toy right now.
Right. Yeah. No, I get
We
it.
can talk in the fall, not now.
Right.
And so I'm going back and forth. Do I race? Do I not race? I've got the time to race. Do I want to race? And it was really an exercise of trying to understand on the inside, what's my driver? Where is it coming from? What am I looking for an outcome? Why do I really want to do this? And understand this. Then I had a new friend in the area who's like, come on out to the race with me. And so like I'm going, that's it. I'm not racing. It's all good. We're not going to race this season. We'll wait until I get a bike and come back. I don't mind if I finish whatever place, but I know me. I'm going to want to go fast, and I want to go fast safely relative to others. And then I get the email, and then I'm like, well, maybe I should race. And then I'm like, no, I shouldn't race. And then maybe I should race. And at the end of the day, I had decided I'm not going to race, and then I let universe take care of things. One event popped up, another event popped up, another thing popped up. So I didn't get out to the shop to pick up my bike until I would literally have to sprint over to the race. And I was like, perfect. Wasn't meant to race. So I went out on the ride and I went up the hill next to here, which is a really steep switchbacky hill, with my new and improved old bike. And I set a personal record by about 30 seconds. I love it when I do a little bit better.
Yeah.
And then I was completely out of energy. And
Wow.
I'm like, you were not meant to race today. This has been your quote busiest week. There's another word, quality week, and the chi wasn't there. So it's really good that you didn't do it. It's really good that you listened to yourself. And I had the most blissful, relaxing experience. And then there's a steep downhill near here. And I did it twice. I wrote it down and then came back up and wrote it again and said, look, you're probably going to race this summer. At some point, you're going to say, do it. So why don't you practice more? I'm sure, even though ego says, I'm a good rider, blah, 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 you've been on the bike for 3 weeks and 20 years. Why don't you spend some time practicing?
Wait, 3 weeks and 20 years?
I guess technically, um, I rode mountain bikes all the time, every chance I could until 1997. And then we moved, the we I was with at the time moved to Fort Collins. Fort Collins was this rockier terrain, wasn't very mountain bike friendly. Went out with one of the local experts. He crashed and dented his bicycle on my first and only ride with him. And I said, I don't really need to mountain bike up here.
Mm.
And within the next few years, because I lived there for 7 years, I had sold my mountain bike equipment. When I moved to Boulder, I was a huge trail runner there, and there's not that many mountain bike trails in town. They're building more now. The IMBA, the local mountain bike organization and international mountain bike organization, has been building more trails, but there weren't many. So I did lots and lots of trail running. I did get a mountain bike on Maui. It was part of my healing journey, but it was more dirt roads that went into the cane fields, the sugar fields.
Right.
And then when I got to North Carolina, it was dirt roads into the forestry lands. So there hasn't been the mountain trails to play on, the single track of 10% grades or something down and up. So it hasn't been there for a while. I'm impressed. Yeah, I'm surprised. This is one of the challenges that I give coaching clients, particularly when they say they're numb, I can't feel anything, they don't know where to go in life, any of this stuff, is I want them to remember what they enjoyed as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then relatively speaking, I want them to do it again
Mm-hmm.
because it triggers a whole chain of events in their psyche and inside of them. As a kid, I loved to be on my bike. I loved to be on the trails.
Mm.
Uh, and when I got to college, I almost yearned for the off season. I'd race pro level on track and on road bike, but I would use the mountain bike as my training tool in the winter. And I almost didn't want the real season to come along because I loved it so much. In fact, when I was racing in Europe on road bikes, I remember pining in front of the TV over mountain bike racing and going,
Wow.
"Is just the grass greener on the other side? I
Right.
don't know." But what it turns out is I was doing what I thought I should do, the road biking, rather than what my heart loved, the mountain.
Mm.
After I got injured in Europe, and I went back to Europe to finish school because that's where I've been racing for a few years. I'd been off of crutches literally about a month training on a mountain bike. When a friend dragged me to a race, he said he was going to race. I was going to do the bike tour around the race course. And then we get there and he goes, I don't feel that good. I think you should do the race for me. He gives me the number.
Oh
I'm like,
my gosh.
what? And I won the race. Uh,
Wow.
that was like gift from God. I was bawling in tears, bawling. And I rode with the pros for about another month in Europe and I did pretty well. And then the hardware, titanium hardware in my leg at that point came loose.
Mm.
And so I was done until I could have surgery 6 months later. But that was pure joy. And then I trained for like the Leadville 100 in Colorado. My back was still a mess. It was really a PTSD thing. But being out in nature, and I camped out at 13,000 feet on this place called Mosquito Pass for 6 weeks near mountain lion. I could hear the mama and her baby cubs.
Wow.
It's so cool. But that connection that I got through mountain biking. But it's interesting. This is a couple of times. Getting back to Colorado is a remembrance of who I was or who I am. And the mountain biking is a remembrance of who I am, of what brings me great joy. It's interesting how lost we can get. Not lost as in we forget our whole lives, but like when I left Colorado and I went to Maui and then I lived on the East Coast, I was thinking, well, Colorado is just this landlocked state. What do I want to be in a landlocked? It was weird. I'd completely forgotten that when I went to college, it was to go to the mountains and it was the most glorious, spectacular thing. I had been in Colorado only 24 hours where I had taken my mountain bike to the top of Pikes Peak up at 14,000 feet, pushing the bike more than riding it, swearing I would never do it again. I did it many times. But that was that connection, and I'd forgotten. And so getting back to that connection has been really special and blissful. And I don't even know how we got down this direct rabbit hole, but
I think I have a connection, but continue. I have a thought. I keep on hearing in my head something, so I'll tell you what I'm hearing. But you go ahead, finish up.
it's just been a very peaceful experience. I guess we were talking about I had only been riding for 3 weeks. That's where this started. Only been riding here for 3 weeks, and my ego saying, "Well, you couldn't get any better if you trained on this bike."
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure I can get better.
Okay. So can I actually give you my intuitive
Please,
hit
now
based on?
usually I'm not rambling. But,
We will make sense out of
good.
all this. There is a thread. It connects to what we're talking about. I promise you. Okay, so here's what I'm hearing in my head is that, the race is a metaphor for like a competition, and the competition, my intuitive sense, is between your ego and your heart. Because you said, and here's how I'm patching that together, because you said over and over again, your heart wants to mountain bike. And in fact, when you went with your heart and you rode up and you practiced just going with your heart and enjoying the natural, the ride, and practicing being in the heart and just beginning to love mountain biking, right? It was your ego that was like, why is this man 20? I'm a professional. Why is this man 20 years older than me beating me? Oh, it must be the bike. It must be he has this better bike. And like, who cares? The only one who cares is the ego. The only one who cares in this scenario is the professional biker who is like, why is this man who's 20 years older than me and and you're in good shape, right? Why is he beating me? It's because your ego is the only one that really cares about it. And then what's interesting is your ego pushed you to like take the curbs until you're like, no, I went to the physical limits and I was right. This was unsafe to take this bike, this 1996 bike, and do the thing that this 2018 bike can do. It cannot do that. And it's kind of a metaphor, right? Like, you haven't biked for 20 years, but somehow you're like going to perform exactly like you did when you won that race. I mean, it's just
no pressure.
Yeah, exactly. But somehow I'll make up for it because I'm in good shape. There's this kind of, I did it the last time where that guy just had me sub in and I won the race. So why wouldn't this happen? So it's just like the ego. It's like these egos, this ego that we all have. I'm not even saying, I'm laughing at you because I'm really laughing at another version of myself. Because if I were in that situation, I'd be thinking exactly the same things. So it's interesting because really it's a competition between your mind and your heart, right? And so I have a radical idea. Because I know you don't want to actually spend money on the bike right now because you've had expenses, a lot of expenses in moving. So maybe in the exercise of like completely challenging your ego, you go on these bike rides. You may not win, but really what you're trying to do is win over the egoic part of you that wants to win all the time and compete and be better. So you're like, I'm on an old bike. Yes, I'm the slowest
I no
guy
longer
here.
have a squirrel on my desk. It is now a tortoise.
So maybe, I don't know, that's like one idea, which is like instead of thinking about, okay, I've got to compete, I've got to win, I'm a professional, I'm going to go back and recreate the same results as before, say, yes, I am not going to create the same results. I'm going to try, maybe not try to come in last, but I'm going to try to take it slow and easy on my bike because I'm also the same age as this bike. I have not done this stuff. And how can I push myself enough so that I feel like still enjoying and with my heart this wonderful experience, meeting a bunch of nice people, and then later in the year, next year, get a new bike, and then just be like, ha ha, your ego can finally get what it wants, I guess. But maybe think of this race as a different race. That way you can just enjoy it and know like it's like an inner competition. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's probably what it will come down to. My friend has said, "I'll see you at the race next week," and I'm like, but and it may be that every other week is mountain. I have no urge to do road. We will just take things as it come. But I am very, it's beautiful learnings. All of these things are learnings, and as I was coming down this hill and coming down it rather quickly as I was training, I was like, look, you're running a show. You're helping thousands upon thousands of people. You're not exactly replaceable at the moment.
Right.
If you really pushed it that hard and something happened, is that really what you want right now? And I'm having this discussion as I'm going down the hill, and I'm like, hell no. I'm like, I just want to have fun and
Right.
come back in one piece. I used to say in a race, death before dishonor. I am not there, CJ.
Dishonor before death. You're exactly the opposite of that. Well, it's funny because one of the things on my list is humility, right? Humility, listening and humility, which is exactly a parallel, right? Where you say, okay, I'm listening to my body, I'm listening to my inner higher voice, and I have humility to say, okay, what is the most important thing in my life? Is it to win the race, to beat this guy, beat everyone else, it's like, or is it something else? And I had last week, I had the third session of my online group coaching class, which is going fabulous. And I got feedback, and this is actually work that I've been doing for the last 18 years. These 6 pieces of work that I've been doing with these gals, I do it one-on-one, and the dynamics are completely different. But I got tons and tons of really good feedback on ways that I can improve as I'm taking this one-on-one experience to an online experience where there's not a lot of touch, there's not the high touch. There's a lot of do it on your own kind of scenarios. And it was so interesting. It was one of those things where it really wasn't exercise in humility, this thing that I've actually developed into this beautiful diamond. And I feel it's like the most beautiful thing that I could offer. It was like reduced to like an ice cube. It's a sparkling, clear item that got crushed, and I was like, "All right, it had I had the humility to go, yeah, of course it's going to be different. I'm doing this for the first time. I'm doing this way in a completely different way. I'm doing 1 versus 1 to 5 people, 1 person versus 5 people. I'm doing it, one-on-one versus I'm doing hardly any touch, just like 1/10 the touch of that I normally do. And so I don't have a deep enough rapport with folks as I would if I actually worked with them one-on-one. I'm really personally, I'm in it with them. And now I'm kind of like, I'm there, I'm standing at a distance, I'm giving them homework, I'm hoping the best. It's like I gave them a IKEA packaging. I'm like, God bless. I hope you can assemble this into something. I'm just going in the background like, yes, you can do it. Let me show you all the wonderful things people have done with IKEA furniture. It's like that. But it's interesting to just have the humility like, yep, it's not happening and that's okay. And if I just listen, it will get better than it is now. And whenever you do something for the first time or re-engage in doing something in a new way, you're going to make mistakes. Things are going to be harder than you thought, and they'll take more time than you thought, and that's okay.
This morning I was playing in a parking lot. It was from my coach's instructions for skating,
Hmm.
which is to practice skating in circles, little circles to the
Wow.
left, little circles to the right. And used to be a speed skater and went round it was short track like Apollo Ono. So I used to no, I was never really that good, but I would go around pretty fast around the turns. And now I can barely cross one leg over the other. It is so
Wow.
humbling. So this morning, going to the right, at first I couldn't because I've been skating on bike paths for the last 6, 8 months since I started again. Nothing would turns, and putting to go to the right, which is the opposite of how you would race. It's completely counterintuitive if you've been skating around basically hockey rink through speed skating tracks. To the left, going to the right is like I
No,
just
yeah, no, it's
looked.
hard to actually do those crosses in the way that your body naturally operates. I totally get it because I used to skate, not speed skate, but I used to skate around the rink over and around and around. It's hard.
Yeah, and it's extremely. It could have been a humiliating experience because I'm like, I just look like a 3-year-old with like elbow pads on. I mean, I just looked a mess. By the end of the skating session, it was not great, but it was starting to get smoother. As you keep doing your class, starting from this level that is certainly better than my turns, it will just get better and better and better still. And so judging ourselves from the beginning is just the most off. We all do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like somebody giving you a basketball and saying, "Why don't we, shoot some hoops?" And you go, "I'm terrible at free throws."
Right,
And you go, "Well, how much have you done it?" And you say, "Well, I did it once, and I was just awful at it."
right.
Yeah, we get to practice and improve.
It's so true, and I think that in this society where you're expected to get it right, move forward as fast as you can, I don't think that we cut ourselves enough slack. Yeah, so I think that to me it's like cutting ourselves slack and allowing ourselves to grow into things. I think that's what I'm getting out of this conversation and how doing so can create more peace. And it's the same thing with Jessica and me in this whole thing, right? I'm kind of like, oh, I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. It's like, cut yourself some slack. A whole bunch of unexpected things happen. It is what it is whenever you're doing foundational pieces. Anytime you're doing a remodel or building something new, you're going to hit some unexpected thing. And those unexpected things mean that, some of the things that you had on your schedule are going to go away. And it can cause you stress because you're going to have to double up. And that's just the way it is. So I think it's cutting yourself slack in terms of time because it may take longer time. Like it's going to take you longer time. It's going to take me longer time. I mean, it's just, and then having kind of I'm hearing it's the time and kind of changing your expectations, your lens on the perfection that you're expecting. That's what I'm hearing too.
And
Changing
then
your time frame, accepting
from
what is. And
absolutely.
yeah.
This week has been, for me, actually, I'm really relaxed right now. Um, as far as just how much it's been funny where because of the time zone differences and stuff, there have been a few mornings this week I'm coaching at 7 and all the way through coaching at what is it, 8:30 at night, or I guess finishing up later than that. And I've had the opportunity to just, I call it open space, to just breathe into it, to allow on a whole new level that goes, wow, that's a lot of chair time, Michael. Yeah, yeah, it is.
Mm,
Ah,
mm-hmm.
with no fight behind it. The
Mm.
level, so I'm coming out of this week energized. I've got one more coaching session after this. I'm very excited for it. And I'm cutting out energized. I can't say everything went perfect, but everything went perfectly as it could.
Right.
because of my level of,
Yeah.
not even it's an, okay, I've got a lot to do. Okay, this is another session more than would be desired. Okay, I've got a meeting with India at 10:30 at night when I want to be asleep. And that level.
Yes. I'm just laughing because it's really hard to do that. It's really hard to do that, and I think it's marvelous that you're because what it is it's just the well, let me see if I can break down
Yeah.
the because I'm interpreting the it's like a half and it's like a slight. I'm just wondering how much is a little bit of both, but I think so when you go
There's less eek and more There's,
uh,
I'll look at my calendar and go, wow, I've just finished one meeting, one this, one that. I have 3 minutes until the next one. Or I have 30 seconds until the next. And I just relax into it. I go, all
yeah.
right, stand, sit, stand, sit, stand, almost doing a squat. There, you got 30 seconds of movement. Let's do this. No fight this week. I have brought no fight. So yes, I went out on my ride. I sprinted up the hill. I got a new personal record, and then I was just cheed out. And I didn't fight it. No fight. And that has been huge. It has brought me so much more peace to just be with whatever the experience is,
Yeah.
rather than, oh, I'd really like to. I'm like, there was a yesterday, the day before, where I'm like, I'm really hungry. Maybe next hour. Maybe next hour. And you just be with it. And I will count up my hours this week, and I will write that number down, not as a badge of pride, and say that moving forward, that was like the high mark, the flood mark or something. And I will work kind, gentle, easy, good with even more prosperity and abundance for ourselves and for all to work that down and say that was the high mark. You did it with grace and ease as best you could. And now let's kind, gentle, easy, good see if we don't have to get there again. But if I tried to fight this week would have bucked me off.
Well, it's funny because I feel like when my husband said, "Are you mad at me? Are you seem?" and I was like, "Yeah, I am totally the grumpy elf." I thought, okay. It really made, and then I had an interview yesterday when I was talking to someone about people who are black holes in organizations. And one of the ways that people are black holes when they're always busy. I'm always busy. I'm always busy. I don't have any space. I don't have any time. I don't have time to do this. And I thought, wow, like yeah, I'm that person this week. And what can I learn about this kind of no time, no time? And I thought, well, yeah, I don't have time. Like more things to do than time than I have to do them. Like, yeah, that is what it is. And if I could just kind of recognize that I don't have time and recognize that I'm overwhelmed and recognize that I'm grumpy and even accept that.
Of course.
I'm grumpy, overwhelmed, a little bit snappish. I'm jamming. My meditations suck. I'm I'm multitasking, walking while checking email, running while talking to a contractor. Like this is just it is what it is. I'm doing the best that I can, and instead of judging myself, feeling bad about it, even though I'm still working through it a little bit, but I feel like I'm like, okay, if next week ends up being exactly like this week, I feel like I learned enough this week that next week can be maybe exactly the same, but feel differently on the inside. So,
Bingo.
yeah. Woohoo!
Beat me to it, CJ.
And oddly, both of us have to go to a meeting soon. So, what do you have to wrap it up, Michael? Bring it to us.
Observe the wave. I've said it so many times before, but I'm going to go right back there. Observe the wave. Don't be the wave.
Yeah.
What is the wave? Wave is often emotion, but a wave is also attachment. Attachment to a way something happens, attachment to want to get what you want to get done in the day, attachment to what you want to happen when. Any of those wants are
Yeah.
attachment. If you can let go of the wants, that doesn't mean don't do the best you can or don't hope for it, but don't attach to it.
Right.
If you can do that, then it all works out, period, one way
Beautiful.
or the other, and you're not slaying yourself in the process.
I think the title is Getting Nothing Done and Being Okay with It. I think that's almost been the title of our last 3 shows. What did I write to the last one? I can't remember.
But I'm gonna challenge you on that, CJ, because you've got, I know, and this is one of my homework assignments. I give almost all my coaching clients.
Yes.
At the end of the day, I want you put aside the to-do list after you've gone through it. Put aside the to-do list and write out your daily wins, the things that you did get done. Because it's not that you didn't get stuff done. You got a lot done. It just wasn't the specific items.
Yeah, you're right.
That you
Fair
wanted.
enough.
And if we can take inventory of that, we realize we not only cut ourselves slack, we go, wow,
Right.
I can't believe I did this, that, the other thing. I didn't realize it because it wasn't on my list.
Right. Fair enough. I love that idea.
So you got a lot done this week. And I know I got done this week. And that will be interesting talking next week because I will have that Wednesday afternoon. It's so funny. I called Wednesday. I said I'm taking off Wednesday afternoon so that I can race. That meant I cleared my calendar for after 4 p.m.
Well,
I'm calling that afternoon.
Better than nothing.
Woohoo!
Woohoo!
All right. I love you, CJ. I love you, everyone who's listening. I want you to relax into everything you've got going on into your life, which means observe it, observe the wave, but don't be the wave. You can even surf that wave. And I think life will feel much, much better.
Love it.
Woo-hoo! And then get that meditation in because that has been my saving grace. So, for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler and
CJ Lou from the Fire It Up with CJ show. Woo!
Spiraling upwards, saying, be well, have fun, breathe deep, and bring peace into your life. And above and beyond all else, shine bright.
Woo!
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support, love, and blessings.